The first step will be considering getting one because you are trying to save for yourself, usually as the firm owner. It's like, okay, I've gotten to the point now where I want to put some money away for my retirement savings. And also, I want the tax benefits that go along with that. So typically, we're seeing at that point, your accountant is nudging you. You're probably hiring some people. Those people are saying, do we have a retirement
Yeah.
plan? Where's my 401k? I had that at my old job, something like that. So those tend to be the point at which, the door starts to open, I would say. Now, as far as who and how, the who could be a financial advisor. If you're a small enough firm, you can get by with just a regular financial advisor probably for a while.
Hey there, I just want to take a quick break from today's podcast to tell you about an event that we're hosting August 1 and 2. I'm going to be hosting a small, intimate event for solo and small firm lawyers here in our offices in Fairfax, Virginia. If you've never been to a great legal marketing event before, or even if you have, this is going to be the place for you to start. If you're running a small law firm and you're looking for ways to attract more clients without spending a lot more money, we're going to be diving deep over those 2 days into all of the little DIY things you can do, even if you have a small team. This is going to be perfect for a law firm that's doing between about $500,000 and $1 million in top-line revenue. If you're making more money than that, good for you. You're doing a lot of things right, but this event isn't for you. Let me tell you what this is not. This is not an event where, under the guise of a seminar, we're going to be selling you websites, pay-per-click ads, or other digital marketing media. That's not our space in the market. This is where you're going to learn how to effectively use your next hour and your next dollar in growing your law firm. We'll be part lecture and part workshop. There'll be some prep work to do before the event and some post-event follow-up so we can answer lingering questions and keep you motivated to building a better life for you and your family. Together, let's figure out why you're not making more money, getting better cases, and converting more of your leads. Again, this is August 1 and 2 in our offices in Fairfax, Virginia. And if you want to be on the early list of people who are getting up-to-date information, just shoot me an email at ben@greatlegalmarketing.com. That's ben@greatlegalmarketing.com, and I'll make sure you're one of the first to know.
Welcome to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, the show where we ask the questions, why aren't more lawyers living flourishing lives and inspiring others? And can you really get wealthy while doing only the work you love with people you like? Many lawyers are. Get ready to hear from your host, Ben Glass, the founder of the law firm Ben Glass Law in Fairfax, Virginia, and Great Legal Marketing, an organization that helps good people succeed by coaching, inspiring, and supporting law firm owners. Join us for today's conversation.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast. This is Ben. Each episode I get to interview people inside and outside of legal who are making a ding in the world. Today we're going to talk about money, taxes, retirement planning, all things that small biz owners, particularly lawyers, aren't very good at because we don't do it that frequently. And the first time we do it, we really oftentimes do not know what we are doing. And so today's guest is actually pretty local to me. Courtenay Shipley has a company called Retirement Planology. We're going to talk about how she got to that name in a little bit. Based out of Northern Virginia, helping small biz all over the country, though. Courtenay is the founder and the chief planologist, and she's a consulting and registered investment advisory firm for corporate-sponsored retirement plans, which, look, I know that this can sound like overwhelming. So for me, a visionary, all of this stuff was overwhelming when our firm went through this. But Courtenay's going to walk us through it and, in fact, tell us maybe some stories of firms and companies that went with kind of big branded black and white plans and then come to her a couple of years later trying to get things fixed up. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. Courtenay, thanks so much for being on the program today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's fun. So we're recording, and for posterity's sake, we're recording this in May of 2024. So, things can change over time. Tell me a little bit about your journey, my friend. You're young. Everybody looks young to me, but you look young. You've got your own business in this space in the DC metropolitan area. How'd you get there? Where'd you come from?
Oh my gosh. So I'm young-ish.
Yeah.
This is actually my 23rd year of doing retirement plans. After college, I needed a job and I didn't want to move back into my parents' basement, So I took the first job I could find, and that was actually in the insurance and also retirement planning space. And quickly learned I did not like selling insurance, but I did like the investment side. Moved through a couple of different jobs, just focusing specifically on retirement plans. And during that time, I won the lottery on bad bosses. So around 2010, I went out on my own for a short stint. I had some partners, and then Retirement Planology came out as the brand that it is today. And that was in 2014.
Well, congratulations for that. I'm curious. I consult with or advise and mentor a lot of youngins. What did you study in college? Was this
Music.
music? Okay. All right. So now let's talk about that, because a lot of
Okay.
kids go to college and thinking that they need to know everything and know what their life plan is at 17 or 18. You may well still be in the music space. I don't know. But talk to me a little bit about the move from music and college to insurance and financial services world.
Yeah. So I'm right on the cusp of Gen X and millennial. So that's only important because the self-driven and the entrepreneurial spirit tends to come with that, the risk taking. But I'd say that the one thing that they were recruiting for was someone who was a self-starter and someone who had control of their own time and good with time management, and also didn't have to have somebody standing over them to reach goals. So musicians and athletes is actually who they were recruiting for because of that. And so that's how I got that job.
That's really interesting.
Though.
And yeah, I grew up playing soccer and played down at William Mary and continued to referee in the space now 50 years after I got my referee badge. But my daughter was in high school and she ran cross country. And, we just always saw the cross country team as the most driven, focused, high achieving individuals across the sort of scholastic spectrum. They were good athletes. And now I think she has her 20-year reunion coming up, high school reunion, and they have done things in the world, her core group of friends. So very good. How did you sit around and come up with Retirement Planology as the name? Do you like checking out URLs and
To be different than what else was out there already. I wanted to have a different firm because obviously I don't look like most, financial advisors that show up to manage your retirement plan. So I wanted it to reflect that and also just, be different. And it's an art and it's a science, right? Like there's a lot that goes into these types of plans, both from balancing the business owner's needs to what do the employees need? What's the budget? Are we constrained? Are we growing? All of those things. And so there's both art and science behind it. And so the ology, the study of, sounded pretty good at the end of it. And Retirement Planology was born. So there you go.
Good for you. So give us a sense of the scope of the services that you and your firm provide now. Is it all like to business and corporations, or are you providing individual retirement planning as well?
So our focus is on corporate sponsored retirement plans. So that's going to be like a 401k, 403b, a cash balance of 457, anything like that. Probably has some sort of tax code that goes along with it. We do talk with the employees to help them make smart decisions about how to use the plan and make sure they understand it and appreciate it. After all, the company is spending all this money and time on it. So we want them to be getting a lot out of it, So we help the employees from that sense. We don't do wealth management. We don't do insurance sales. We don't do banking or anything else. So we are hyper focused on that space of corporate retirement plans.
One of the things that's interesting, so we employ in the law firm probably 20 people under roof. Many of them are young. My son and I are 50-50 owners of the firm and have done well. And one of the things we try to do is impart generalized life and financial advice. Having
Yes, I
now
love that.
at my age lived through probably 5 major cycles of crash and explode stock markets over my sort of from teen to now. And yet our sense is it's hard to get somebody to listen or to act. They'll listen, but to execute. So I'm curious about that. When you come in to talk to employees, how effective do you think you are, first of all? And then what techniques or what stories are you telling to get
Mhm.
someone who's young excited about, delayed gratification with money?
It's the worst, right?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so there's a few things to consider here. The first is that people may not remember what you said, but they'll remember how they felt when they were hearing it. So that's an important thing. You cannot speak with jargon. You cannot assume that people know anything when you walk in the door. And so my first job was working with school teachers who were just not very savvy investors. And so I always start with a fifth grade level. If my mother can understand it, she's my test dummy,
Sure.
then I know that I'm on the right track. So being very basic about it. But I think everybody can get behind the idea that retirement is the luxury to decide how you spend your time later in life. So that could be at any age. You could be one of these people that does the retire early, the fire movement, and you might be, 30 when you do it. If you can be an ultra saver,
Second time
you
today,
might be.
I was listening to a podcast.
Mhm.
Second time today, I heard of the fire movement. I wasn't really sure what it meant, but now I kind of figured it out, right? But
Yep.
that's interesting that you use the same term. Excuse me, just to on the
Yeah.
way back. Yeah.
So that's something that's out there. And so but it drives home the point that you could be at any age. It's just that 65 has generally become the accepted age because that's what Social Security was tied to. And now it's 67. So retirement could look like a lot of different things for people. It could be that you're hanging out with your grandkids, or it could be that you're making a career change. Or it could be that you've just kind of, downshifted a little bit. You're still working part time at the same job that you loved for all those years. We see that with a lot of lawyers. They just want to be the brain surgeon, bring
Yes.
me in for the really tough stuff
Yeah.
and I'll be here to help support you and mentor otherwise. And so that's what we drive home on. And if you're not going to be showing up at a job to get a paycheck, then we need to figure out how you're going to make your own paycheck in retirement. So that's where we start. And then we go from there.
And then you make it as easy as possible to these youngins who, honestly, goodness, don't even know how to fill out a checkbook or a check, right? I guess they don't use checks at all anymore. If the numbers on the iPhone are black, we're good, and if they're red, I'm in trouble this month. And no disrespect to youngins, but good for you for doing that. All right, so
Sure. But I will tell
yeah,
you, those youngins are very happy when you say that you've automatically enrolled them in the plan.
yeah,
They appreciate that and they're expecting
exactly.
it.
And our mantra is, and you should max out your own contribution and look
Mhm.
at these numbers because you are, 26 years old, and
Yep.
that,
But their Gen X and their baby boomer parents have lectured them ad nauseum. You must sign up for this because we didn't save enough and now
yeah.
you have the chance to do it right. So they're not as hard to sell as you might
Well,
think they
that's
are.
good. That's good.
Mhm.
All right, so now let's talk. So, as you and I talked about before we went live, a lot of firms that come to Great Legal Marketing, they come sort of at the beginning of a firm journey or early on. They're not making a ton of money,
Mhm.
but at some point they do start to make money, hopefully earlier rather than later. And one of the things they've heard about, they've known about, the last place that they actually were employed at before they started their own entrepreneurial venture, maybe had a retirement plan. But those different plans you named off 3 minutes ago,
Yep.
that's dizzying to us
Yep.
because, again, we don't do it a bunch. So, how does one who's a firm owner go about starting to think about this? Is it, let me just go find an advisor? Is it,
Mhm.
let me go find a big brand because they all got them, right? Is the
Yep.
company that does my payroll, would they be good to go set up a plan? Or
Yep. Yep.
my payroll
Always strong.
technology, right? So
Mhm.
kind of walk us through how somebody who's owner of one of these firms should start to think about the process of how do I start now building a retirement plan for myself and for my employees?
Yep. So the first step will be considering getting one because you are trying to save for yourself, usually as the firm owner. It's like, okay, I've gotten to the point now where I want to put some money away for my retirement savings. And also, I want the tax benefits that go along with that. So typically, we're seeing at that point, your accountant is nudging you. You're probably hiring some people. Those people are saying, do we have a retirement
Yeah.
plan? Where's my 401k? I had that at my old job, something like that. So those tend to be the point at which, the door starts to open, I would say. Now, as far as who and how, The who could be a financial advisor. If you're a small enough firm, you can get by with just a regular financial advisor probably for a while. However, as you grow, as you scale, as you start to want to have more customization with those plans, that's when you really do need a specialist. So, someone like us who's a retirement plan advisor specifically for that, we're not, just dabbling in it, but rather this is what we do all day. That's when you look for somebody like us to come help. Now, you mentioned the big brands. And again, starting out, sometimes just getting started is the most important thing, right? We don't want to put a lot of hurdles in place here. But at some point, you're going to want extra help. And when you are thinking about who to hire for the first time, whether that be the big brands or otherwise, like a Fidelity or a Vanguard, or, you've all heard them before, I want you to think long and hard about your operations and who's going to be the person that's pressing the buttons to have the payroll go
Yeah.
to get for the money to get over there. Because a lot of decisions for small businesses really do need to take that operational consideration. You don't want to add a lot more overhead and a lot more work for yourself as the owner that doesn't need to be there. And we're at the point now where technology really does matter and does a lot of the heavy lifting as long as you're looking for systems that are connected. So you mentioned like your payroll provider. That may not be a bad place to start. There could be others that are they already have a relationship with as well. Like, oh, have a 360 or a 180 relationship where we're feeding data back and forth. And so those are always good things to consider.
Walk me through as though you were talking to your mother at you said, I think, the fifth grade level or something. Sort of the buffet of types of plans or architectures of plans that a small firm who's starting to become profitable, they've maybe crossed through seven figures, they do want to attract and retain A players, but there's
Okay.
a smorgasbord of choices
Yep.
out there. And I know each case is going to be different and you're going to walk people through individually. But as a big
Yep.
picture, what do some of these plans look and feel like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So depending on how large the firm is too, like how many employees you have, that's going to be another thing that drives this conversation as well. So I'll just put that out there to start. The first would be a SEP IRA. A SEP IRA is something that you're going to work with your accountant on as far as how much you can put away. But one of the caps is 25% of your pay, but it's just going to depend on how the numbers shake out. So that's one where you can start with your accountant. What you do for yourself, you have to do for your employees too. So if you're maxing yourself out and you have a bunch of employees, that's going to get expensive really fast. So that may not be the route that you want to go, but for small firms that are, three people, or it's a husband-wife situation, something like that, they could consider that. The next is going to be what's called a simple IRA. A simple IRA is also just like an oversized IRA, just like the SEP is. The simple requires a company contribution. You can either do a match or just give everybody a percentage of their pay. It's very easy in that the employee has to then go set up their own account. So you just have to make sure the money gets there. For simple IRAs, the most an employee could put in for 2024 would be $16,000 unless they're turning age 50 or older, and then they could do 19,500. So you may stop there. You may say, "Oh, okay, well that's all anybody wants to save is, that would be the high end." And you just go on about your business and you can have that plan until you hit 100 employees. But you may be at the point now where you're like, "Nah, I want more like $30,000 put away." Or something along those lines. So if you are creeping into that 20 something thousand range, that's when you need to start looking at that 401k plan. Or if you want to do profit sharing and have the option to put that in the plan, or do a different kind of matching contribution into the plan. So 401k is the thing that allows for that. Now that's run like a trust. So everybody's is bundled together for tax purposes, even though you have your own individual account inside that pool. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a little different. Like the IRAs I just mentioned a second ago, I said the employee had to go set up their own account at their own financial institution. They're responsible for the investments. Once you cross over into 401k land, then you have fiduciary responsibility as the person who is overseeing the plan. So now you got to pretend like it's your grandmother's money that you're taking care of. And I always say, pretend like you're putting Nana in the home. You got to go visit that home. You got to go make sure it's a good place for her. And it's got places where she can sit and play bridge with her friends, and she's going to have a good time, and she's going to be taken care of medically. It costs the right amount, all that. You're getting value for the services. Same concept with the 401k. So that's where you have to have that level of oversight, because it's not your money, it's everybody's money, right?
And that's where the responsibility, really starts to grow. Yeah. And, as a law firm owner who's probably working on cases and trying to manage and scale a firm, while they accept the responsibility, they don't want to know which hammer to use. They really don't.
No.
Yeah.
That's where we come in at that point. Start directing traffic, help them out, make sure they know what they're supposed to be doing, sign here, send this there, etc.
Talk to us a little bit about using plans as a retention device. In other words, hey, the longer you stay here, the more there's vested for you. What of the plans you just talked about, where does that come in?
So these used to be something that would really keep people in the seats. Baby boomers really value them. Other generations do value them too, maybe not as much. It is going to be part of why somebody stays with your firm. It will not be the sole reason that they stay with your firm, but it all adds up, right?
Yes.
And it could be.
Yes.
And it can be the straw that broke the camel's back. They didn't even match me. That's the last thing that they say, right, before they leave. So from a retention standpoint, there's the expectation that they're going to have a retirement plan at some point for most people who are joining what they perceive to be a larger firm. The second aspect of it is, can we all share in the profits? And so that's a retention strategy, because you're showing them, hey, your work is tied to the firm's profitability and you've got this money for the future. You're probably going to want to do a cash bonus as well as put some money into the retirement plan, because people, like you said, the delayed gratification is hard.
Yeah.
The other piece of it is you can attach a vesting schedule. So stay here, stay with us for 5 years. And if you should leave the next day, then you take everything with you, what we've put in, what you've put in together. So the shorter, it helps for keeping people around from a longevity standpoint. And they're earning ownership of the company dollars that went into the plan over time. So that's how it tends to work as far as a retention strategy is concerned.
Thank you. So one of the fears of young and growing firms is that revenue and profit can go like waves, right? It can go up, it can go down year to year. And I know that when, at least many years ago, when we first started thinking about this, I'm like, am I tying, we had a great year, good. Am I tying myself into something that I won't be able to meet my contribution obligations next year if the year isn't as good? So talk to me a little bit about how, is that a real fear, number one? And two, if it is, how do we alleviate or lessen the risk that if next year isn't as good, somehow this is actually going to put me in a deeper hole than I would have had I not set up a plan?
Yeah. So we are very careful with our clients to build in a lot of flexibility. And so we're there walking alongside them and taking a look at the budget too. If they had a fantastic year last year, awesome. If the year before that was awful, then we know the range, right? The most important thing is the plan design is set up to be flexible in that situation. So can we put some like discretionary opportunities in there where they are not required to put in money unless they want to? What decision points could they have throughout the year for when they want to make that decision, or just at the end of the year? So that's where we really take a lot of effort and painstaking effort, quite frankly, to match the budget needs, as well as, what's the vision for this year? How are things going to shake out? What can we predict and what can't we?
That's why you get paid, like that. You're the strategist, setting it up at the beginning so that it works. Almost no matter what the cash flow and the profitability is. So let me ask you this: when a lawyer comes to your company and you all do make decisions as a team and you set up the plan, and let's just call it a well-oiled plan, no matter what it is, how much time and energy is the lawyer putting into keeping his or her eyes on the plan over the course of a year? Is it, hey, a strategic meeting with you once a year? Is it something they have to look at every Friday afternoon before they're heading home? Yeah, again, with a well-oiled plan that's properly set up, and you've had these discussions with the owner of the firm.
Yeah. So that's going to vary based on the size of the firm and the complexity of the plan, and then how much money is sitting in it,
Okay,
right?
so
So
again,
the larger the plan, probably the more often you're looking at it. But the person who's going to be looking at it the most is your operations person. Whoever is doing the payroll, they're probably interfacing with it a lot more often. Otherwise, there's 2 times a year that there's some heavy lifting. One is right after the end of the year, and that's when the all the information is due for them to tie up all the compliance work for the prior year. So that, and then signing the tax form for the plan, which is called the 5500, the form 5500, and that's due in July unless you extend. Some people don't have their taxes done yet, and so October is the other date.
with a well-oiled plan set up by somebody like you, what then are the risks or mistakes that lawyers who are owners of firms can make, or you have seen made probably with other companies, not yours, that can get them into any sort of trouble, either as for their fiduciary obligations, tax wise, or any other legal trouble? Like, what's the worst? What do lawyers do that's really stupid, and what's the worst that can happen when they do it? Because if it's possible, we'll do it. If we're just lawyers.
So there's a couple things. The first is not completely understanding how the plan was set up, and so you're not running it compliantly. So, for example, um, what is the definition of compensation that's
Yeah.
allowed in the plan? What gets matched and what doesn't? So are bonuses included? Are they not included? Different types of pay, different firms have different things. And so you just want to make sure that you're actually following the plan that you set up. That's number one. And then the money is getting there on time. So you didn't miss a payroll. There wasn't some breakdown where money didn't get to the record keeper on time. You didn't forget to enroll somebody when they were eligible, something like
Yeah.
that. So those are real things, but
Maybe
again,
misclassifying a person who's doing work for you as an employee versus a contractor or something, and maybe,
yes, right.
yeah, I can see that. I can see that happen.
Yeah, and the second is just letting the plan go too long without taking a look at it. That's what we see. And they're like, "Yeah, we do this. We have a safe harbor plan. We put in 3%." And you say, "Oh, okay. Well, have you thought about doing profit sharing? Have you thought about like maybe carving out some of these groups for the equity partners versus the non-equity partners versus the staff attorneys versus the paralegals? Like, have you thought about whose contribution is, higher for the company? And so therefore you want to maybe do a different type of profit sharing for each individual groups. So there's a lot of like advanced plan design stuff that if you're not taking a look at it, suddenly this thing that sucks money out of your business, could actually be an asset to the business. But if you're not paying attention, then you outgrow your old plan design really
But I
fast.
imagine that's where you come in, because as the
Yeah.
advisor to the firm, you're the
Mhm.
one who should be proactively saying, "Wow, awesome, a streak of 3, 4 years of really good. Let's have a look.
You got it.
Did you know about ABC or DEF?" And really having that, and you enticing them to participate fully into a strategy
Yeah.
plan with you.
You
What when and maybe we've covered this, but before we went live, you talked about you fixing mistakes when firms have set up plans and now come to you. And maybe it's everything we just talked about in terms of just not being aware what the plan is, not looking at it as the firm gets bigger. But is there anything else like that you are typically looking at when a firm with plans comes to you and you're seeing things like, oh my gosh, like you're missing something over here? What issues have you seen there?
So some pain points we've seen lately were we had one firm where they had a couple of partners who kept getting refunds out of the plan because what happens at the end of the year is this non-discrimination testing, and they have to make sure that the owners aren't benefiting. The owners and the highly compensated employees are not benefiting from the plan substantially more than the non-highly. And when things get out of balance, the easiest and cheapest way is just to refund money to the owners and highly compensated. And so it's like, well, hey, this is like the third year in the row. We can fix that, you don't have to get this back. And they're like, wait, what? How? What happened? Again, it was they had outgrown the plan design long ago and just weren't aware that there were other things that they could do. Or another scenario was they wanted to do more complicated profit sharing type of contribution at the end of the year, and they weren't they were having to pay a lot more than they should have in order to maximize that benefit, just with the way that the plan was set up and how they were doing the contribution to all of the employees. And so we were able to actually save them some money in a weird way. Like, we saved them, but it went back into the plan to help max out everybody. So it was like reusing dollars, if that makes
No,
any
it does.
sense.
No, it does. Let's talk a little bit about you. We are all entrepreneurs who are listening to this. We are growing companies like your company. We're just in a different vertical than you are.
Yeah.
But we're always curious about, how do you get your new clients? What are you doing to, quote, market yourself? And then what are you doing, do you think, to retain folks year after year? Because, I'm sure that your best client is someone who's going to pay you recurring revenue forever, but you got to be doing something to make sure they don't go wander off the reservation, I'm sure. So tell us a little bit about, from the marketing and business perspective, what's Courtenay doing?
Yeah. So again, you kind of nailed it when we got on the podcast and you said, you look young. We just market in a different way. So early on, even before the pandemic, I was one of the first approved for LinkedIn Live. So I've been on there doing videos and live shows now for several years. So we have a ton of content out there, lots with video, lots with blogging. So our SEO, if somebody was Googling for someone to manage their retirement plan, we're going to come up at some point, which I think is good. And I think it's also good to be steering people in the right direction.
Okay, so
that.
pause there. You just said three things that are really cool and our listeners are really going to be interested in. All right, so now what's your infrastructure for getting media out there? Because you mentioned video, you mentioned blogging, you mentioned LinkedIn Live. So and that could be, with your iPhone, boom, or we have a team in the Philippines that helps us. We send raw video to them. How are you getting it done?
Okay, so public speaking is kind of my jam. So I love making videos. I'm well rehearsed. So doing that and then taking the final product, sending it off. We have a small team of people, very small. It's like 2 people. And they will go through a LinkedIn Live or a presentation that I've given, and they will snip out the parts that they thought were the best and make those into just smaller videos. I also get the transcript and send it to our copywriter person, who then turns it into a blog and sends it back to me. And from there I can say, oh, well, here's what I meant to say. Or here's where I will expound upon what I said. And it gets turned into a blog post that way. But that can also be cut down into posts as well. So we're all about the reusing the content. But you got to do
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You said my team. Yeah. So it's just employees, outsourced contractors, a company?
Outsourced contractors.
Okay. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
And now talk to us a little bit about just building and scaling the people in the firm. I don't know how many people you have under roof as employees.
Yep. We have 4 total.
4 total. Okay. So small number of human beings there. What do you do? And are you the sole owner or do you have partners?
I have a partner as well. Yep.
So, what do you all do to make sure that you have a consistent quality of service? Again, the smaller we are, probably the easier that is to do, because you can listen through the walls at conversations if they're there in your office. But at some point you may go from 4 to 14, right? If you want. And so what are you doing to make sure that your brand is being consistently delivered to the market?
Yep. So we have a pretty robust operations outline, maybe, I guess is probably the best way to say it. So we know exactly the services that we're delivering. And of course, that's tied back to the contract. You always have to make sure that you're delivering the services you promised you would. But from there, we're going to leverage as much technology as possible and make the humans do what humans do best. So all the number crunching, all of the CRM that's going to capture all of the client data. We have the regular team meetings by Zoom twice a week just to touch base on what everybody's working on. And then we have a shared project management software. We use Monday.com, where pretty much everything is traded off inside that. So number one, everybody's work is visible, because that's important to know what everybody's working on and how long it's taking and all of that good stuff. But also just to streamline the handoffs and be able to have asynchronous conversations as well and work going on, rather than having to all be at the desk at the same time. Does that make
absolutely
sense?
Makes sense. Where do you, let me ask you, who do you get your inspiration from? Like, what are you listening to podcasts? Do you have favorite speakers, authors about the business building, not about the substance of the vertical, but the what Courtenay can do to take the company to the next level if she wants to?
Yeah, I'm looking at my
Yeah.
bookshelf. Hold on. For sales, Dan Pink, To Sell is Human. For
Yes.
traction, the visionary
Do you
business,
run on ES?
what we have. Yeah, we do. Not to the T, but very close. Yeah, for something that makes sense for a group our
Yeah.
size. Adam has a lot of stress in his life as my partner because he is definitely the implementer in many times. Let's see what else. I would say that I've really cherry picked from a number of different industries because I found that most financial advisory firms were not set up to handle retirement plans. Number one, because it's just not their bread and butter, and also I just didn't like the way they did things. I didn't think that we needed to be in the office for 60 hours a week. I didn't think that even having an office was important. So it's funny when you look back over your career and the number of times you heard like, you can't do it that
Oh,
way.
yeah.
You can't do it that way. You can't do it. Okay, watch me. Like,
The Renegade Lawyer podcast.
yeah.
Exactly right. Oh, there was an idea that came from that oh, I know. So who are your referral sources? So for
Yep.
us in one of our verticals, we're always looking like who else is serving our next client. Obviously the healthcare industry, obviously other lawyers who do work that's similar to us, but not exactly in our ERISA disability space. Obviously lawyers, family lawyers who don't do any personal injury or disability work. For you, who is it that has your next potential client? And then what are you doing to make sure that you're staying in front of these sources?
So ours would be ERISA attorneys, maybe who have clients that need an advisor, or they have some work from M&A or other things that they don't want to do or doesn't fall into their wheelhouse. So that's the attorney front. Accountants are good referral sources for us, outsourced CFO or that kind of function, controller function as well. Outsourced HR is usually very good for the growing companies who are staffing up quickly and they're trying to add policies and procedures and streamline all the operations. So people who are in that kind of space as well,
And
like
are you
payroll.
doing anything
Mhm.
deliberate to like reach out to the universe who does not
Yeah.
already know you and send you referrals?
Yeah, we do. The other one is benefits firms that don't have
Right.
what we do in house. And so, yes, as far as seeking them out and then keeping them abreast of just changes, because the good idea fairies that live in Congress come up with all kinds of stuff all the time that people need to be aware of and what the changes are and what kind of heavy lifting that looks like
I,
now and how they can
I
help
just
their
laugh because it's
clients.
always heavy
So,
lifting because it's buried inside some 4,500 page bill about something else, right?
truth, truth. Yeah. But, helping other people sound smart is important,
That's a
I
good way to
think.
put it. Helping other people sound smart. I'm going to steal
Yeah,
that one.
do
Well,
it.
look, this has been great. If anyone, again, you can serve law firms anywhere in the country.
Mhm.
Where should people go? Do you offer a free consultation, or I don't even know? I didn't go to look. Do you have a white paper or a book that you've authored? How can people find you?
So I've got a whole lot of nerdy stuff out there on retirementplanology.com. You can go under the blog section. There's also, if you go to retirementplanology.com/learn more, that's a good place to start. And that has my calendar. So if you do want to reach out for a quick phone call, just to discuss your issues, see if we're a good fit, or, you need to go in a different direction, or what should you do, we're always open for that. And then on LinkedIn, you can find me. LinkedIn, C
I'll bet.
Shipley is just
Sounds
it.
like you're
Very
big on
easy.
LinkedIn. Yes.
Yep. Yep. So those are great places to go and just kind of binge on our content for a
Well,
while.
very good. And thanks so much for sharing this and taking some time out. You've built something that's pretty awesome. I guess my last question is, where do you see yourself in the firm 3 to 5 years from now? What's your vision for Perfect as we look down the calendar?
Oh man, Ben. One thing that I have found is that women build businesses differently, I think, than men do sometimes. And I have a 6-year-old, and I love to be able to show up at school and eat lunch with them or whatever the party is of the week. as he gets older, his schedule's going to change. And I would just want to make sure that I continue to have my life supported by my business and not my business supported by my life. So I don't know if I can answer that question. We'll see
you
how.
You said perfect is to have my life supported by my business. That's what the Renegade Lawyer podcast and Great Legal Marketing is all about. Like, your life is the primary. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know exactly how many days we have. There's nothing more precious than the time you're spending with your 6-year-old. And the rest is just to build it to support that. And it's okay to say that. No, I think that was a perfect answer. Very good. Yeah. Well, look, it's been wonderful to chat with you and to get to know you. And we're local, so at some point we'll have to get together. You should come see our digs out here. We've got, if you ever need a training, if you ever need a place to do a seminar, or, you know, we got a 42-week training center right out here near Fair Oaks. And we have all sorts of businesses come in to do meetings or to do seminars and stuff, because part of what we want people to do is just to walk into the law firm and say, you know, what is this place really? Because it doesn't seem like an old-fashioned law firm. Like, these guys and gals who work here are something different. And we are. We're entrepreneurs first and lawyers and second, but we're moms and dads too, just like you. So that was a perfect answer, my friend.
Thanks.
All right. We'll chat soon. Thanks for being on the program, Courtney.
Thanks so much for having me, Ben.
If you like what you just heard on the Renegade Lawyer podcast, you may be a perfect fit for the great legal marketing community. Law firm owners across the country are becoming heroes to their families and icons in their communities. They've gone renegade by rejecting the status quo of the legal profession so they can deliver high-quality legal services coupled with top-notch customer service to clients who pay, stay, and refer. Learn more at greatlegalmarketing.com. That's greatlegalmarketing.com.